I guess we'll throw it over to Bray and let them, tell us what we're gonna.
All right. So Nick's gonna kind of run through some work that's been done since the last time we met, taking into account the comments that we received and just the discussion that was held.
Alrighty.
Full screen.
Where's the?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this one is. Just flooded.
So last time we met, the option that was preferred included the addition on the west side and the gymnasium in the southwest of that addition. And then everything, including the existing gymnasium to the east of the pre-K rooms, was being demolished. And this diagram just sort of formalizes and organizes that scheme in a little more detail. One thing to note is that we investigated the setback requirements from the property line and have a couple different versions to show you. This version fits within the property line, and it pushes that addition on the west side to the south a little bit in order to get all of that stuff in there. And so there's the gymnasium, the gymnasium lobby and vestibule, an entry plaza. The multi-purpose room is reworked a little bit so that it relates directly across from the gymnasium, with the idea that that wall could be opened up. And then one of the things we talked about last time was the corridor and narrowing that corridor down and not including those individual meeting rooms within the corridor. And that's reflected in this scheme. Those individual rooms are just tucked in with the classrooms. There's one right there. There's another one right there. And first, second, third grade and sped on the first floor, and then up on the second floor, fourth and fifth grades, and music and art. And then if we look at the site plan, one thing that happens here, if we move the addition to the south, in order to fit within those property lines, we have to take out this drive lane that exists, existing drive lane. And I'll just show you, I'll just skip ahead to the next version. That's the existing drive lane. And by pushing this addition to the south, we don't have room for it. So this includes additional parking and a new drive lane to the east of the site. And a bus lane to the west. And then, so the next version, if we were to bump outside of the property line, the setback line, we can align the addition with the south side of the existing building and then maintain that existing drive lane through. So in this scheme, you're probably spending less on drive lanes and paving.
We'd have to go to the county and ask permission to be able to build within the setback.
Well, Mark's got a working relationship with those guys. He'd be able to tell you which guy to
Tight
talk
with
to.
those guys. But it should actually be the city, or is that?
I was
the
gonna
county
say,
road?
yes, wouldn't be.
It should be
Well,
city. You're in the city. of New
But I
Boston.
think, but I think it's the county zoning. I don't think it's the city zoning.
Yeah, we couldn't find any.
Either way,
The
I
city's
can't believe,
specific.
how many feet are you talking there? It doesn't look like many.
Not a lot, no.
I can't hardly believe the city of New Boston or the county would have any issue with that.
And it's still short of the existing sidewalk line.
Exactly.
So if you keep that drive lane, how do you envision morning drop off working? Because parents will try to drive in there and then you got the buses going down the bus lane.
You're probably gonna have to regulate traffic so it's one direction in drop off period. Buses go south to north, cars pull in the lot, turn right to go north. So you'd have two lanes going.
Well, now, Bill, you got your buses by themselves.
Right, but I could see people trying to pull in that.
Trying to merge in.
Do we know
And
how
then-
many buses we've got at one time here?
One time typically drop off for 2 buses at one time for pickup, we're at 4.
Yeah.
4 and then a break and then 2 or 3 more.
So you may be better off to use buses on the south.
Use buses in the
Parking lot.
driveway with the parking lot and use the driveway on the left side, west side is automobile.
Yeah, we really need to do something better than what Apollo is, because that's a terrible.
Well, here's a nightmare too.
This is the worst. This worse than Apollo?
Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah.
And they get at each other. They start driving the wrong way and driving through parking spaces.
Bill's whipped them into shape over Apollo a little bit better than it used to be.
How good you're to drive.
I know, people used to drop, like they'd park their car right by the front door, get out, take their kid, and everybody else is like, where are you going?
Is there additional parking on this one? You just don't have them on here, no.
It's not shown here, but you have an area to the east where there could be.
Because right now they're parking up on the north end, right?
Well,
And the parking is really tight.
I know they
That
park all
on-street
all
stuff.
the- Yeah,
And even on the north side, if you've got a full-size vehicle, you're hanging out in the street unless you're
yeah. I
nudging
see
the fence.
Shannon's usually parked in front of the concession stand. That big hall.
Yeah.
So you think we need more parking?
Yeah. Would you go back to that first one?
20 cars more or 40 cars more? or-
Well, you can see in that area you've got where those cars, you've got to be parking, you gotta have the front of your car with a sidewalk just to get
Oh,
back
so
in.
they're parked, they're perpendicular
They're
to the sidewalk.
perpendicular, yeah.
Oh,
Park in the south of school, like all that kind of wrap around.
okay.
There's no way to put another row of parking where those cars are on the school side.
If you mean if you take out the.
There's a
Yeah, right,
hill.
no, right here.
Yeah, there's a hill. Those cars are lower than the building by, I don't know.
10 feet,
or
yeah,
something.
10 feet.
Yeah.
But this is cool because you keep the buses and those separate.
It gives you more parking.
City might want to help with the parking lot.
And they probably would.
Right.
So how many cars do you think you need to fit on site, Paul?
say it again.
How many cars do you think are needed for parking?
Those on a normal day, that's normally full, and then there's normally one. 10 to 12 more on the south side and I know we're 6, 7 more on the north side.
How many teachers are
So-
there?
Normally we,
16 to 18 additional?
right, normally we 33 is what we have.
And then janitors and whatnot.
Paras.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fair.
that includes.
Oh, that
includes
includes 33.
Staff.
Okay,
Staff.
People that are there every day.
33.
there's 30.
so you
So how
need
many
40,
parking spots are right there.
you need 40 spaces probably, minimum.
It's like 30. If that's scale. Roughly 20. There's 22 just on the top of the side, so we have 40.
You need 40
stalls.
because somebody's gonna park in 2 spots.
Then you're adding the stand.
And there's gonna be some.
I've got a driver Billy. That was even spots for snow plows.
Right.
Like,
We're not gonna see that Escalade.
But I think having the
Fit
best-
to 1.1.
That's nice.
Part of the purpose of on this one, the reason the drive lane kind of swoops in is to put the entry point at the mid block and not too close to the intersection. You could probably pull it down a little bit. It's just, some municipalities have kind of regulations as to how close to an intersection you want to put a driveway.
New Boston does not.
Yeah, but that's smart though.
Yeah.
Cause it'd just create a bottleneck. You'll get people coming back out trying to go that
Are we
way.
losing any of the new playground stuff or is that?
That sure don't look like it. See the blue?
Oh, that's up top.
Yeah.
So how old's that? Like 4 years, 5 years?
How many parents do you think line up at a time? Cars.
They all show up at one time.
How many parents do you think
Within
line
5
up?
minutes.
Yeah.
Right now. Busy 5 minutes of it. 6.
I don't think you could find any school that wouldn't say drop off or pickups.
We don't have a
Can't
majority of our kids are buses.
He said it's only 6 or so anyhow. He said it's only 6 or so anyhow.
That's good. Right now, they're probably dropping them off all over the place. 'Cause,
4
To
buses.
avoid it.
yeah.
This looks like a great plan. I would park,
I drop my kid off right over there.
Run.
and I'd rather see all that level on the south side. I'm positive they'll give us that little bit of footage to move that out.
Oh, you mean the old super line?
Yeah, keep everything. where it was.
Yeah, even if you have to include the parking lot on this.
On the other one.
Yeah.
It's not. really.
Yeah, right, it's got, you're with me. It's just for looks and I guess on that south side, keep all that even. I'm positive they'll give you that variance.
At that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then include your little parking lot you were talking about, drop off. Just slide it over there into that drawing.
So keep that swooping in.
The
You
bigger
got it.
parking lot.
Yeah, just.
I don't know that we can get a double loaded parking lot on the left because of the hillside there.
That's what I think.
No, just add that other one.
Yeah.
The one you already had.
Oh, leave it on the right hand
Yeah,
side.
yeah, it's
Oh,
not
okay.
showing it that.
With
view.
the, with the drop off and
Yeah.
everything.
You got it.
Billy, did you have to go to college today?
Yeah.
Hawkeyes, it's gotta be tough.
Oh, it is.
I'm rooting until Logan Lee graduates.
I do root for him.
Anyway, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is the preferred version.
Yeah.
So is this?
Wherever you had that. parking
No,
lot.
your other one, if you go up, back out to your other slides.
Want the parking lot like it was, but move the building over so we still get that little circle
You
drive.
got it. Down's all over it. So just show your other slides down here there.
Just go here, click that one there. There you go.
Try to go cheap.
Right there. So cut, copy,
Everybody's
paste
got
the
these.
southeast corner.
Or just scooch the building
Now, wait a
over in
minute.
that one.
What's different there?
The building.
Oh, it sticks out.
It's
The
comes
gymnasium
down.
has to
building
move
stick
down,
down.
have to stay within the line.
Yeah,
but
just.
Once you
One or the
scooch that
other
up-
slide, the red to the upper, the north.
Yeah, we'll have the red part be flush on the left and the parking lot is shown on the
Just leave
right.
it just like it.
Right.
Yeah,
And then we'd still have the other circle drive.
Still have the existing parking lot.
So that version. So if we looked at this, look a little. For a second at the floor plan. One thing to note is that we talked a little bit about the different kitchens last time. And this assumes that this is not a production kitchen.
That's probably gonna be a big question is how do you wanna handle, so they've got a servery space shown. But I guess the big question is how much kitchen do you provide and how does that affect just district-wide, how you're handling food? Not to open a can of worms, but
Well, you took, from the beginning, you told us that's not what we should be doing with 800 grand. Is that correct?
so most districts out of pure economy tend to centralize food production and distribute. It's understood that that's.
Are they going as far as we're going, or maybe?
Say North Scott School District and just north of the Quad Cities goes every bit as far as you do. They'll go from the west side of Eldridge to Princeton, Iowa, which is probably about the same drive.
Part of it is
Do they have
also,
local chicken nuggets or do they have good ones?
I don't know, but their
Air fryer.
serving situation is not unlike what you guys do. It's just a couple of pieces of equipment and layouts and
but
tables.
part of it is also what the equipment is. Because the new equipment does a better job at trying to avoid those
Soggy
soggy
chicken
chicken
nuggets.
nuggets.
Pureed chicken nuggets, Eldridge to Princeton.
Yeah. They do full food production at the North Scott Junior High School.
And it's not,
I think they're,
Scott talked about staffing it and all the other things.
I think
that
their
go along with
furthest elementary is Princeton.
And it's hard finding cooks these days.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, that's the other,
Along with
that's the-
everybody else.
probably the bigger portion of it is, we're always running short on staff.
Looks nice. Really nice.
Like a half. Like
Send them down cold, they go.
Yeah.
You'd still need a class scale teacher.
Like.
You gotta have somebody there to serve anyhow. So
Sorry, say those again.
Halfway.
You have,
And then you just take it out there.
I think you're just warming it in. I don't think we're cooking anything. No, it's
Very little.
We cook hamburger, we boil water for noodles.
So how hard is it just to warm it there?
Almost,
so
almost
reading
everything is pre-cooked.
interventionist, social
How hard
worker,
would it be to warm it? there?
math, ESL.
SEL, we have a social learning.
And I'm with take Bill and Bounds with me. We need to get a little committee to say, okay, how are we gonna get this better?
Yeah, we got Joe and.
Yeah. That group that you got.
What's Pat?
Are those
Math.
Oh,
we kind of need to know that though, so we know what,
not
if we're gonna
math?
need any more space.
Yeah,
at all.
we have a math reading intervention. Math and
That would,
reading
might make a difference on how we do it, wouldn't it?
Maybe a possible something like that in down there for like. I mean, I guess we would have coolers and all that stuff. 'cause that's the kind of stuff you put in a kitchen, then you gotta have coolers and freezers.
Are those,
You don't-
where did those occur? Typically in a single classroom?
I just think this looks good.
Yeah.
We don't.
You got two feet through.
And then maybe you got.
Full classroom.
yeah, how many people do reading intervention? How many people do they, it's one-on-one?
No, it's like a one.
One on three.
So that's these SGI rooms. The question would be is whether they're big enough.
Some question.
Those are suitable for like up to 1 on 4 probably.
So same with math, then is 1 on 3 to 5.
Kitchen where I got a
The
wheel.
social worker.
And what is strictly gonna be so we're not doing food prep.
Scales of 1 to 5. Speech can be anywhere from a 1 to 4.
Three. So we only have 3 SGIs, but typically the thinking is that they're not dedicated, they're shared
Right.
resource, and so you're programming in and out. There's 3 of those, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 programs, so I'm not sure. You'd have to look at schedule to see if there's one.
And so is the reading intervention and math intervention, are they full-time?
So it's a PSDL. Hey, what is it? Social workers, 3.
So those little small
That's what we're
intervention.
discussing right now. So,
We didn't know what it is.
yeah, so small group intervention. So Marcus just asked.
about, they've got reading interventionist, math interventionist, social worker, SEL, and speech. So that's 5 interventions that happen. Typically, the way interventions work is that, say, a reading interventionist isn't parking in a room all day long. It's periodic. So we've got 3 small group instructions. The discussion was that they need to be big enough for up to a 1-on-5 instruction. So typically that's an office sized room, or a little bit bigger than an office sized room. You'd typically set up with a teacher and then like a kidney shaped desk, and you can see kids around. And so it's individualized instruction.
These aren't like the behavior rooms.
No, these are
Isn't that-
education. So we've got 3,
That's that sensory room now.
we've got 3 SGI spaces in the plan. And the question is that sufficient to handle the 5 interventions that occur?
The reading and math are full-time positions though at this building. Yeah, okay. And then what about the speech?
Speech is 4 days a week. We split her with the pre-K and Joy.
And SEL?
And she has a full-time 5 days a week. I think they got me. Yeah.
And social worker?
Split it with the junior high, but just, it's pretty good. This next year.
Okay.
We're gonna need some.
No, we have intervention. So they're special ed reviews, but these are interventions.
I don't know about how many special educators, because they look like full size class. So if we've got 3 full-size special education classrooms, do we need that many, that size?
So is that outside of what you guys were planning?
We had
Is, you mean the part of,
What he's talking about?
what he needs is more than what we were thinking.
Okay, good. So we're all lined up.
Well, we'll have to add.
We'll have to
space
add
cover
some
space.
Which we.
I mean, we got part of it covered, but not all.
So we just found it.
Make the gym smaller.
Yes, we used to.
You can.
Well,
Y'all happy
stuff. Yeah, whatever. I didn't make one.
Right, absolutely.
Cooked them, you know, they put them in that kiln.
Yes,
Harden,
absolutely.
Melt
Yeah.
that glassy, you know, paint. and
Yeah.
Turn into hard glass.
Marcus, anything else after that conversation about the? Okay. So the question is whether we need 2 additional of those small group instruction spaces, which would put you at 5. We've got 3, there's 5 interventions that occur.
Are they easy to put in there or
Yeah, I mean,
we gotta ask the city?
we're gonna have to add some footprint likely to cover it.
I just asked if we could shrink the gym some.
Well, I'd look at maybe shrinking your sped rooms because you've got them as full-size classrooms, which doesn't happen.
Yeah, Mark asked if they need to be full-size rooms. I guess that's a question. Do the special ed need to be full-size?
It's like that back there, you should know.
How many students typically are, I know this is ever changing.
We have split this year, 3rd and 4th grade, we at one point go down 16.
It's in there.
Yep. Where do you think that's where we have about 16, 17 kids.
It's over.
16.
Yeah. No, it's-
And then are they, what are they like,
Grades.
one or two, or what is the?
So that's what we said, third, fourth.
Typically.
I don't have any trade rate days on the right. It's like we need that.
Yeah, he's supposed to be there. Back, drag your along the can.
Okay, and we have, how many special items? Three. Yeah, so we have three, you're saying there's. Oh, now you have three.
Yeah.
Okay, and those would all still be in that.
Now, I'll still set them shed. I think it was a great idea that they decided it wasn't very fun to run. Yeah. I'd melt down right next to that.
Oh, yeah. You need to spend the day with me in that bucket truck. Okay, you'll appreciate lots
You're
of
the
stuff.
man.
There's a breeze in the bucket truck. I'm used to it. Come on with me. I only did 12 years in the bucket truck.
I don't want to.
Would you cut trees when you're doing it?
Yes. Power low around
Like the sawdust in your eyes and.
Access to their exciting. So you'll just get some of those river towns. Where's their access? Weird stuff, the trees.
So if you have one for each intervention, that could be their. Yeah, when they're shared, you kind of have to figure that out. If you- Yeah. If we add two more, you'd have one SGI for each intervention, so that can help that situation. Otherwise, we do a kind of a bullpen spot where they have a landing for when they're there. But that often has to be shared too, because they're kind of in and out of there, so. The bigger problem is where do you store all the materials in that situation?
So was we able to accomplish what Scott talked about, make this special ed room smaller?
While you're on the topic of special ed, we need to have a discussion about having a moving room for the district. We're
Well,
talking
don't say
dollars,
thank you
cents,
yet.
how many kids will be sent to the boss ed at 50,000 a year? And how many kids do we have in our district that refuse to go because of the transportation that leaves at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work?
So as you, not to take away from the program discussion, but it does affect. I used this plan, the one that encroaches, because it was a little more space favorable. And I was just taking the guess that that was going to be more desirable. But we're 29, just shy of 30,000 square foot addition. Little bit of remodeling for that existing common space if we change that. Guessing, we're trying to cover a crazy market that's ever inflating, so we're looking at gosh, it's looking like an all-in cost at about 9.7 million, so this is getting expensive. Part of this again is we're in a market that's hard to keep track of right now, and so it is the best guess for today. So that being said, as we talk through the night, I think we've got some strategy that using this cost basis gets kind of favorable for potentially starting to carve at the high school, but this needs to be looked at as we're starting to talk about some of these space needs, because it does affect our costs.
Have we changed stuff to make it go up, or it's just prices?
It's just where the cost of the market's
We had a
going.
bid due Friday for good window replacement project. A little over $1 million was my estimate. And I thought I had it padded pretty well. The bid was still 15% over what mine.
So
Yes.
driving down here, I told these guys, I said, this has gone up and I'm still nervous that it's not enough. And Mark said, well, it doesn't sound unreasonable, but it's like,
That's the thing. I mean, you look at the number, the individual numbers, and none of them seem out of line. It's just that, you add it all up and there's a lot of stuff going on and we still don't know.
what's that?
Demolition.
I mean, it's all kind of a crapshoot, right? We try to base this on where we're seeing costs right now. What I can't do is tell you where costs are at in the winter. We're thinking that the market will flatten, meaning it'll stop increasing, but it's not gonna go back down. I just don't see that it's gonna come back down.
We do see some of the pressures that we saw even a month ago dissipating. Some of the delivery times on product has come down. This window project, million one in windows.
The demand is dropping, the price is not.
The price hasn't dropped, but
It's
we were
exactly it.
thinking it would be, 4 or 5 months for delivery. Now they're saying, it's probably gonna be 3 or 4. So that's good, but it didn't get any cheaper. So wood doors were, oak doors were 5 months, and now they're down to 3.5 or 4. So some things are improving in certain areas, but it doesn't really fix any of our problems, but it is improving, I guess.
So Marcus, you got kind of cut off. So you were talking about the kids that go to Boss Ed. And how many of those students are you talking about? I guess go ahead and just say again what you were saying.
So like at this building now, which is fantastic for our kids, I know it's we have 5 kids in that room. Well, 5 kids that would be kids that we typically send to Boss Ed, they were able to keep in district. There's
Okay.
so significantly high need that typically we would send them to Boss Ed. Not know how many we have currently right now, but we have a handful of students just at New Boston that we were recommended. But because of, we had 2 students and there's 2 students in Joy get picked up at 5 o'clock. If they go there. And we were lucky that their parents are very supportive of Boss Ed. The Boss Ed's fantastic, but because of our location, bus times. And then if we're talking dollars and cents, it's $50,000 a year to send a kid there. How many kids do we have sent there?
We have about a dozen typically.
It's 50 grand
Is
a
it
kid.
funded or unfunded? Do we get refunded for it?
Not much.
Just ask.
Above 4 per capita. And our per capita is about $10,000, so anything over 40 grand, we should get back.
Right.
If the state appropriates enough money for it. They typically don't, and so that 10 grand gets prorated at some percentage.
Special education district for.
Blackhawk area.
Yeah, okay. So would you just have your own room for that?
Yeah, it would be nice to have something for our district, like even Hollow week kids come to New Boston would be fantastic.
That's what I'm saying. You just want to add one room to this project?
You
for down there?
have to look at probably 2 rooms because it's a K2, then a 3-5, just because you can't have kids within 4 years of the birthday outside of that room.
And then
It becomes
Bill,
cost.
what do you got? How many of them you got?
I've got one in the older grades and I've got several in pre-K and kindergarten that we're sorting.
We're starting this for the first year this school year for the 22-23 for grades 6, 7, and 8. The rules only allow us to have 4 physical years difference between the ages of the kids. So in a 6, 7, 8 building, I can have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in that same self-contained life skills classroom.
But you're saying it varies. So some years you got 2 kids, some years you got 6 kids.
Potentially, but I agree with Bill is right now we have 2 already that go to the center that could stay in district. And I have another 3 coming into kindergarten that are on that list to have that conversation about.
And so if we were to do our own in-house, we'd have to hire some staff to. Are those type of staff members easy to find? Or,
No,
because I know we have a lot of problem with getting
Yeah,
special.
we had
That's-
hoped to be able to do that at the high school beginning this year, but we had no applicants for the position.
'Cause I would love, I mean, it'd be great to keep, cause I'm with you. If my kid had to get up at 5 in the morning, I don't think I would want to do that, especially if they're high special
Yeah,
needs,
it's another
you know?
obstacle for a kid, a lot of obstacles.
Yeah,
I mean, these are your students that are typically autistic, Down syndrome.
Sure.
I mean, but that have extremely high needs, that have OT, PT, speed, I mean, they have all sorts of different services. Really, you provide them those opportunities in district. And then they are still along with their peers for PE, for music, for art, for all that stuff as well, which is extremely beneficial, but the guy from fifth grade are gonna come here next year.
and then you get parents that refuse boss ed, so we still have to have a place for them.
Absolutely.
Right, but it's right back to if we can't hire somebody. So they would-
Well, no, we have to. I mean, we
I
have
have
to,
hire
right.
someone to teach it.
Oh, yeah,
Scott's saying yet no one applying for the job.
right.
And
What do we
typically
do?
your lower
So
levels
we
a
have to
little bit
provide
easier to get
service.
applicants for than your higher levels,
Can't hire something.
in my experience.
So we provide the service or we pay somebody, we can hire a third party contractor
Oh,
at about double what we would pay our own person teacher.
You know, and it is something that maybe we in a couple of years, we don't have a full room. I think we have opportunities with local districts that we could offer them a potential option for them to come and be within that room as well. I'm guessing West Central and United are on the same boat we are. That I don't know where they go. It might be Galesburg, I don't know. But
I don't think West Central sends them anywhere.
And what's the difference between that, Scott, and out here
They
at,
don't do pass.
by
they're not paying boss
Carl
ed
Redford?
50 grand.
What's that?
That's a GED program.
Okay, that's all. that
Yep.
is.
For example, this year we had, because I just pulled up those numbers, eight students attending the special education center. We have 2 students that are full-time in the deaf hard of hearing program. That's still split between Moline and Sherrard. We had 2 students at the Phoenix program. And 4 students at Camelot. There's a
16 kids district-wide.
Yep.
Are all those kids 50 grand-ish? I mean, that's nice.
Well,
some are cheap, depending on the program,
It's a good average.
the DHH ones are higher.
and we should get reimbursed on anything over $40,000.
Yeah, but the proration's typically about 10%. So you're getting pennies on the dollar back.
So the 160,000 they're supposed to be reimbursed for, we're gonna get a percentage of that
Yeah,
number also, so.
Yeah.
For the cost of one, we're gonna get one kid back for the 16 we sent, and that's gonna be about. $800,000 a year.
I know you, I mean, transportation wise, having a bus driver.
Oh, yeah.
Having a para on that bus for those students as well. I know you get reimbursed for that. But it's still, we have trouble finding bus drivers anyway, so.
Do the bus drivers stay up there or do they come back? and go
I
back?
don't know that.
depends on the dismissal schedules. And that makes it even more complicated because we deal with a number of different schools and school districts. They have an early out on this day, so if they're getting out at 1:30, then no, we don't bring them back because all they do is get back here and turn around and go back up. If they're all normal days, 3 o'clock kinds of dismissals, then they typically come back.
Just something to consider. Opportunity to help kids.
I don't want to go back to 1979, I think, but if the money's climbing and we might need more space, is there a way to save the old gym? Now, gym and you put it in the classrooms? Is that something?
Probably $1.5 million question.
I'm saying, is that something we are interested in? Because last I heard, the gym was cool, and I know I missed the last meeting, so. I don't know how worried we are about the mileage.
Well, I think we are.
Just the cost of sending the kids there, or else we gotta talk about it. They're gonna be here, what it would cost to have our own staff, if we could get our own staff. But we're talking like the cost of a full service kitchen per year
Yeah.
for that number of kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of big savings, but it'd be a big change.
But unfortunately, it wouldn't matter if we went back to our original remodel the whole thing for 1986 from last fall. That's not gonna be that anymore. That's gonna be 25% higher. If we went back,
It's-
clear back to
Everything's higher.
every single thing, so
6.6 and 8.2.
it's going up 25%. It wouldn't matter.
For sure, you're up in the high teens, low twenties of percents on.
Yeah.
Cost.
It's not-
It's
No,
just,
no, yeah,
it's incredible how much things are disproportionate.
yeah.
The gym is likely about $1.5 million proposition. So,
Because before it was 6.6 with out and 8.2 with.
right, and now it's more like the 8.2 with,
8.7.
Yeah.
It's progressing.
Yeah.
and the gym would take some additional investigation to
Yeah, I'm not trying to.
make sure that you could do it. And then it does require a little bit of new construction just to make sure you get the access in and out of it and that.
Is that something that you'd be interested in? Keeping the gym, the old gym?
What are we more worried about, the classrooms or the gym?
That's probably a question for the whole board.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
Personally, I mean, I want the new gym. That's what we said we're doing. I mean, I knew this was gonna be out. There's no way I thought this was gonna be where it was.
Right.
There's no way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so thankful we're getting this edition done out here for the 1.6. I
So-
couldn't even imagine it'd be up 20.
You ought to sell it.
Scott just showed us an estimate from 1988 for a $5 million brand new high school.
Absolutely.
Wasn't this 5 million?
You missed a bargain.
Done by,
This
done by the
was-
same
this was
gentleman.
six-
sitting
yeah,
out
This
here.
this building was 6 million in 2000. That sound right?
I thought it was 5.
It was less than.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Do that, but that's potato, patata.
Yeah.
You know.
So, well, if we're talking about maybe the old gym being salvageable, would it make sense to take that and turn it into classrooms for the,
Well, the problem with that, yeah, your footprint isn't gonna yield a great amount of classrooms. You gotta do some modification and, I'm just not sure if that's the right answer for you.
And my concerns, Bill, are all your mechanicals down and I walk down, they're clear at the other end of the gym feeding the, what I'd call the old area. You go with me, Don? You know, I mean, those are the things, and I agree with Don. Don said that sucker could last another 50 years, and I said it could last 5 minutes. It Depends on.
Well, I don't want to go back in time on it. I just, if you're getting to where we're running out of money. Sure.
Yeah.
It's on the footprint of the gym.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't.
That little kick out on the right, it's the mechanical, right down the far right.
Between the pre-Ks?
No,
No.
no, keep going right with your cursor. There at the edge of the bill, right there. That's the, I think that's the
So-
mechanical room.
yeah,
Well, where's the gym?
Yeah.
In this drawing?
that.
It's
that-
Right there.
right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So when you pull down that old 3-story and gym, the mechanical goes away and now you're gonna service that differently on the
Right.
other side. Yeah.
Just for me to even look at the gym, you know, just the
Right.
construction or what it is, it doesn't even fit into today's thought pattern at all. Not
I
even,
don't think it fit in the thought pattern time either.
you know, I just,
It's
it's like
an
they put it on.
It's
Yeah.
odd.
I've never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah.
There's a sensibility as to why the new wing was added the way it was, but it doesn't make it easy to deal with everything still standing. And if you do say, well, gosh, wouldn't it make more sense to add to the other side of the site, then it's whatever the width of the whole existing building is that you gotta infill just to connect both sides. So
Right.
I think there's still a sensibility to adding to the west,
which is what they were doing. That was their plan.
moving to the right.
Yeah, and moving away from that
Yeah.
other side.
So,
Don, are you shocked that that number went up that much? Okay, I mean, you're in business. No, I'll just,
Everything, just, there's nothing that didn't go up.
Jason, you have any thought that wasn't gonna go up?
No, I'm not surprised. It just was time. Yeah, just more time.
Gasoline, groceries, whatever, everything's, labor. hair
well,
product.
everybody puts a fuel surcharge on everything.
Smooth as paper towel. That's right.
The-
Razors are getting more expensive too. Shave that stuff
The
off.
question kind of, it does become, well, what happens if you wait? Well, like I said, regular inflation still applies. So in a year, if nothing else changed, you'd have
2%.
3 to 5% of annualized inflation. So that's if nothing else changes. If the market was to crash, you might actually get the best bang for your buck, because what happens is the workforce will become available. The materials might not change price, but the labor rate might come back down. It's really hard to know.
I'm ready to pick something. Some way.
Well, that's what, so your next item on the line is discuss timeline for projects. So how,
So if we were to say, let's move on this, we could start, still in June, and we would try to have a bid package ready to go to market in January.
And we're still gonna be working on the details and the design. the
Right,
layout.
Yeah, there's still a lot of work.
Do you like this concept?
yeah,
And it'll get squished here and shoved there and pulled over there, but we're trying to, we need to get a direction that we wanna all go in.
So it's conceivable that this could be ready to bid in the open market January. We're assuming you'd want to do a competitive bid as opposed to like a construction managed.
yes,
Okay,
I would.
Yeah.
there's another layer of expense to the,
And they're not at risk, and so you're at the mercy of all the subcontractors not
Agreed.
going out of business.
so timeline would be essentially you'd spend about a month doing refined schematic design, and that's where you get the kind of the better sense of what this is going to look like from the outside. You'd have about a month and a half of design development, which is fact finding and talking with staff about what's the individual needs for each of the rooms, and then the rest of it is just putting together the bid package, which is specs and details and that. You'd probably hit somewhere in the December timeline, you'd hit somewhere north of 75% completion, which would be a really good, you do budget check along the way, you do quality control check along the way, but somewhere in between 75 and 90% is more of a really strong sit down from the board to say, this is what the project's going to be that you're going to bid at, and talking about bid strategy. It's still, January, February, is still a very competitive time of year to bid a project. Contractors are still very competitive because they are still trying to line up work. The question about what is driving that timeline, you need to have a contract signed in February in order to order materials to start construction in June. And it's not to say that you couldn't start construction sooner, but what you want to do is try to arrange construction so that there's enough materials in hand that you don't sit with a delay waiting on stuff to show up. If you can get it bid out and ordered, it takes, I don't know, a lot of products right now are taking about 16 weeks to 20 weeks to get. You don't have to order cabinets necessarily day one, but those take 20 to 22 weeks to get right now. But rooftop units might take a year. Electrical switchgear might take a year. It's going to be a 12 to 14 month bid on the long side. So you got to order that stuff before you start construction. That'll all show up during construction, which will speed up the overall time frame. So in theory, if you don't include the lag from starting the footing dig, you could build this much faster if you give yourself an order.
So you say order in March? So
I think you want to
February.
start ordering materials
February.
in March, February, March for sure.
He said, sign the contract.
Right.
Sign a contract in February.
So we can have stuff on the ground by June.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, this won't be done over the summer.
No,
So,
it would be a 2024
yeah, but
school year.
that's the easy part. The hard part is that we've got an active school building that we're adding on to, and we'll have construction going on at the same time. So you don't have to decide anything tonight, but we're gonna have to plan, how are we going to rearrange things during that construction period? We've got noise, we've got safety, we want to try to keep the kids in the construction separated, but we still have to be able to get our buses and cars in and out. So it's not really hard, but it takes a little time to sit down and think about all the different moving pieces and who's going to be relocated where or when or what have you. So
I think building down there kind of insulates them quite a bit. Built on that side,
Absolutely.
there's bills.
They can take the fence off the west side and move it up. Just, where your playground is. Yeah. I think it looks great.
Stretch markers, all the pictures.
Looks good.
And sequence of construction is one of those things that everybody gets really kind of upset about. This plan, if we can get buy-in from the local jurisdiction, this doesn't disrupt so much you probably won't be able to park in front of the buildings, but you can still route cars through there. The thing is, you can do all this building up and against the building, the existing building without touching it. You'll do the full addition before you ever tear down the existing, and it's become a really fun tool for kids, but it'd be really great to arrange times for tours and use it as a teaching tool for kids, because kids are all going to be looking out at the window at the big tractors. They're going to want to know what's going on, and when it's safe enough to get them in there, get them all little hard hats and walk them through and teach them about what's happening there. It's a great way to prime them for, as they move through their educational experience, because you're building awareness about trades and that early in their experience, and I think that's beneficial. So, that's my sales pitch. Sorry.
Well, I was talking about the career history down the road. Not really.
Well, any other questions on this new Boston, or do you want to jump forward?
We can move
We
forward.
both- Okay.
Look good.
Okay, on to Apollo. What we discussed briefly last time was an addition on the east side of the gymnasium, a multi-purpose room, and we have a couple different versions of that. We're constrained on the east of the building by the drive lane and the west by the building itself. The first one is the boundary of that new multi-purpose room is at the edge of the existing pavement. And it grows north to encompass an existing window at the kitchen area, and that becomes a serving area. And then south to an existing sidewalk. And the entry vestibule in this case would be reworked to include an entry into the multi-purpose room and then entry into the building itself. At the intersection between the multi-purpose room and the gymnasium, we talked about a connection there. And let me just show you a photograph. So that's the existing exit from gymnasium and existing servery. And that connection we could just open up that opening, that existing opening right there. Or we could keep doors there, some form of doors. But the suggestion in this scheme is that that opening that we retain that existing opening, but then introduce a few others to really make it porous between the two. And then the second version is similar. But it bumps, the addition bumps out into the existing drive lane and narrows it down. It's still 20 feet. Still 20 feet of drive lane and 6 feet of sidewalk. So it's still sufficient to drive through, but it just narrows down the existing. And but you end up with a more generously proportioned multi-purpose room.
Can't you get rid of that green space to the east part of that and extend the parking lot further east?
We move the drive over.
Yeah,
Are
get
you,
rid
are
of some
you
of that
trying to
green right
imagine
there.
a single lane drop off instead of allowing for passing the people who
I'm
park
trying
anyway?
to imagine, a parking lot that doesn't look like it's in Ukraine,
Like it's what?
like it's in the Ukraine. Craters.
Cause that's still, I assume that's still a nice problem area right there for the whole, even though we're not
Well, if
supposed
you
to
go
sit
back
here,
to the
we'll
next
stop,
one, you
we'll
can
get out.
You know, it's gotten a lot better.
Has it got?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's good then. Cause there's,
I've kind of started going out direction traffic these days.
yeah.
So I take pictures of people leaving their car stranded there and then put it on our Facebook page to shame them.
Excellent.
Will
use
it
of
work?
social media.
I don't know. I don't think they have any shame because people are sitting right there.
Yeah.
Nobody responds.
I had mom show up in their pajamas with a bowl of cereal.
Nobody
Oh,
responds.
sure.
Bowl of cereal.
I'd have been surprised.
There's plenty of room there to do that.
And there's no trees there.
Right, there's no sidewalk.
We need less grass to mow anyhow.
Be easy, you push 10 more feet of parking,
Yeah.
give you that double lane.
Yeah, that's nothing but. it's
That flat floor wouldn't cost nothing.
Gotta take out the trees.
So the one solution showed coming up alongside the kitchen, which would allow you to simply reverse, take out the window, turning it into a serving window. Where the dirty dish is, where the cursor is right now, that literally could still be your dish return line, and you just put an opening from the south to kind of feed in. So it becomes a very simple solution for the kitchen equipment. The other solution didn't extend all the way up, so it kind of requires a rethink of how you do this.
The first solution looks like it flows the best. I just, how much,
Probably
much
more
cost difference?
money efficient for not requiring much work with the existing kitchen.
Will there be any natural light in the kitchen if that's the case?
You'd get natural light through the multi-purpose room. It'd just be whatever you can filter.
Or we
through
could
the
shorten the
exterior.
wall up a little bit on the right side there.
They don't need natural light.
I got one room in my building with no natural light. Nobody wants.
Depressing.
The kitchen in this building has no natural light. It's in the middle of the building.
So is this actually smaller? Square footage wise, like 500 feet or so, is that, or is it even 100 feet? Oh, that's pretty close.
It's really close. It's just the quality of space being just a little deeper or wider room.
I don't have any problem going east and moving that driveway. The trees in that area that we'd have to take out are probably on their last limit already. I kind of like the kitchen first one. The kitchen, yeah, but you still fix the driveway. That kind of spreads it out for like one supervision, you got kind of a long area. So you don't like that little corner serving? Yeah. And it's handy for having a window there for serving, but when you stretch it out that long, it makes it, you know, right now, what we've had to do because of COVID
is have indoor recess down the hallways, because the only way we can keep them spread out, and it's hard to supervise because it's such a, I think much supervision would come hard. It's a long stretch like that.
The other one, you just moving the serving to the other, round the corner. Right.
So we're
Click the other one.
figuring that you could
Yeah,
get
just-
as many as 200 kids in here for a lunch period. So if you're running 2 lunch periods,
We run like 5 lunch periods.
you do like a continuous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just overlap by.
We had
If
like
you're-
2 grades in there at one time, so 200 would be more than enough.
Okay. Yeah, it seemed like that was a little big for if you were doing a continuous lunch. But for a bigger event, that's a really nice size of a room. So.
Looks good.
So the openness between the 2 rooms, is that something that would you ever want to close that down
Or
or?
there's 2 open right now, one on each side. Right, there's 2 doors on each side there.
Yeah.
So you,
I don't know what all the other doors would be necessary for.
It's
Across there.
if you want to do a large event that overflows between.
It's sort of like
Two
two we have here
spaces.
between the lobby and the cap and the.
oh, like, what do you call that out there before you?
Just becomes an overflow space.
Okay, common.
That's up to you.
That's the com-
I don't,
The only thing is anything you put on, it's on the stage usually, isn't it? Oh, the kids they're not on the stage anymore. No. So, yeah.
Actually, we were talking about using the high school auditorium, which upcoming here.
Oh.
I mean, at least with 2 doors, you got one in, one out. People can figure that out pretty easily. I'm cool with it either way.
Less doors.
I'm with you. That's totally plus one.
So you don't need the additional openings?
I like it. I like the way it looks out here. With the light coming in the gym.
Yeah, that's. I'm not digging the trench on that.
And so if they were openings, would there be doors? Would you want doors in the openings?
I
or
would
could it
think
just
you'd
be
want,
open?
I think you'd want doors
Yeah.
because otherwise
Just
the
the
kids
gymnasium.
playing in the gym on a rain day will be throwing the ball through and hitting a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely doors, but with
We might
glass,
need
or like
doors
you have
too.
out here. I like the way the interface between the gym and the commons here.
Right.
That's nice.
The other thing about the pink-ish salmon color that kind of extends down is kind of the purpose there is it would allow you to have an entry that if there was an event in the multi-purpose that was different than in the gym, you could actually have separate events contain how people get into them and still lock off the whole rest of the school building. So that gives you security. Because right now, if you're gonna have an event in the gym, people have the keys to the whole building.
Yeah.
So this gives you some control.
That's cool. Good. You should do this for a living, sir.
Some people tell me I should stop.
That's when you bring the bill later. My kid's game started like an hour ago.
So Tad, I always say I'll take my fee in, Tad,
Is there?
I always say I'll take my fee in booze, food or cash.
I think sound like a sailor.
So you got rough estimate costs. on
I
this.
do, I will hand that out. This is much more appetizing than the New Boston. It is,
300,000.
no. If that's what you're shooting for, then you're gonna be very disappointed. It is cheaper than when we were looking at adding a gym, so I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
I think we were over 2 million when we looked at it as a gym addition, and it's under 2 million now.
Great.
Yeah, see, we give it and we take it, so,
That's a good one.
yeah.
Well, yeah, That's just.
This is a quick shot
Contingency.
because there's still some questions, so this wouldn't account for any moving of parking, drive lane, but I don't see that being a significant cost to this. I also kind of assume that if we use kind of the option A, that's what I used because it seemed like the more economical, because it really doesn't require any change in the kitchen. Literally, you got a hood there, you can flip equipment around, and now the best guess would you would leave the serving door to the gym, you would add one to the multi-purpose room, and now you got serving for lunch and you got serving for concessions. You can cover multiple events out of that same kitchen. So I think it's a real sensible way to approach it. If you said we want a hybrid somewhere between option A and option B, it's probably just pulling the addition up enough that you could get some access for service on the east side of the kitchen somehow.
If you do kind of what Bill's talking about, didn't have quite as many kids in there.
Yeah.
And didn't mess with the sidewalk, what would your number of people be in there? Would that, see what I'm saying? Just
What would
kinda try to-
the question is, what would the target capacity
see
of
where I'm at,
student be?
Bill, so
Oh,
instead of bumping that onto the sidewalk, let's slim that up to the west. Move the east red line over to the left until it gets off the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Just like the other option.
Yeah,
Pull this,
if
pull this
Bill's saying, you
wall.
really, I know, I understand that it's a nice 200
Yeah,
numbers, you see where I'm at. Then
Just
we
cut
don't-
that
Then we don't
turn
change
area
your
off.
parking lot, we don't change your sidewalk, we don't change anything.
How many kids do you think you have sitting in there at one time?
Well, on indoor recess, it might be more, okay. The
But you
biggest
still
size is
have the
about
gym.
64, so I'm looking at about 140 for lunch at one time. But when we have like big events, like we have the Lac Museum, and we have Super Science Night, the more room we have, the better.
You see, I was just trying not to disturb the sidewalk and all that to the east.
But that all needs to be done anyway.
Okay, there you go, that solves that problem.
There's rebar exposed in that driveway.
Okay,
How many students for an indoor recess, you said?
Well, I split them up and I put some in the activity room. I guess 150 by the gym. Easy.
and I'm okay leaving it like it is with 200. I was just trying to.
So
Yeah,
I could
see,
tell
that
you
little
real
price.
quick, the estimate of size difference.
But
Yeah,
it gets-
you're gonna cut out somewhere between 300 and 600 square feet likely. Part of this is, what I'm trying to do is not cut out, I'm adding just a little bit of extra space, knowing that you're gonna need some buffer of place to stack up some tables or move stuff out of the way, so if you went for the bare number of students, then we'd have to figure out where we're moving stuff to, like
No.
for storage, so I just added a little bit of square footage, but
There's even 1,200 square feet, $400 a square foot, is that what you told us, give or take?
yeah,
No,
you're probably more like 300 all
No.
in, probably 315.
we're not talking about a huge amount of savings.
No,
I was just trying to keep the mess, everything up.
but what this does tell you is that you do have definitely room to massage the plan, and you're still gonna cover what you need for occupancy.
Now that number doesn't include any of the driveway stuff, right?
No, I don't see that as being a huge add though.
Right.
If you're not moving it very far, it's gonna be relatively minimal cost.
So will there be no entrance to that whole room on the side where the lane is, or where would the doors from the outside? Be? Right there?
Yeah, like right there.
Okay.
Would there be another one coming in from the parking lot too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and then you could run a little bit of an overhead canopy out.
That's right now where all the kids that are dropped off in the
Yeah,
morning.
Yeah, that's what I was about.
So the thought was you run a canopy along that addition, so you get them under roof kind of quick. before you get to the door.
Would that, Bill, would that become then your? Cause right now, don't the kids kind of throw their backpacks in the hallway when they run out to play on the playground in the morning? So would they just leave them in the gym or the?
Well, you know, I
cafeteria?
think the kids that eat breakfast would go in there with
Oh,
them.
that's true.
And then the other ones probably just feel like we had the business been working well.
Yeah.
But that way they could just go straight into the cafeteria. That would free up a lot of time for PE. We'd be able to extend all of our PE classes by 10 minutes each grade level. And from a,
Yeah, this way you could have the kids go in and not disrupt a PE class. They don't have to walk through the gym to get to them.
yeah, for all like that, break notes.
From a timeline standpoint, this is a little quicker, easier to kind of put together. So the question is, where do you put it in terms of bidding? And probably you still want to try to bid it out in the winter when it's most competitive. So you could start production just about any time. It's just, it doesn't take near as much to put the size of an addition together. So you could bid early if you want, but I would not bid any sooner than, oh gosh, November, December, mostly because you still have contractors kind of wrapping up this year's work. So you got more ability to massage where you want to get this out in the construction market. And maybe it's that you get this one to where it's bidding a little bit ahead of New Boston. Just one issue is not, you don't want to bid them both at the exact same time, because if you put two projects and one's bigger and one's smaller, everybody's going to bid the bigger one and not touch the smaller one. I would consider not packaging them as the same bid package, only because it's two different sites, two different sets of logistics, and that there might be some merit to putting it all together as a single project, because it does help cover some general conditions expense, meaning one company can have one person manage both projects, so you're saving a little bit. The argument against it is now you're having a company manage the two projects separately, and I don't know, Mark, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought about it a little bit, and I am like you, kind of runs hot and cold.
So how long of a construction period would a project like this take? Is it the 6 month, 9 month?
Gosh, yeah, 6-8 months probably you could do it. Again, you'd want to give a gap though between bidding and start of construction
Right.
for just getting materials.
So your 6 to 8 months does not that does not include the gap for order.
No,
So that's another
no,
3
that's like
months.
the day you dig a hole in the ground.
So you're really talking 11, 12 months.
Yeah, and part of it is just, it's gonna take you 3 months to get windows.
Right.
And that also means you might have a delay in getting roof materials. We're not sure how that's shaken out just yet, so.
It might be worthwhile putting them together as one bid package from a contractor standpoint. You know,
Will we save money by bidding this one?
Yes,
We will save.
we
money.
think so.
What kind of? Can you help me out with
So
that?
a contractor typically has 2 layers of costs that they put on a project. One is profit, just their general margin on they have to pay themselves. So that might run anywhere from 3 to 6% on a project. In real lean times, like post-market crash in 2010, contractors were putting no markup on anything. So there was 0%. They were covering costs. But normally 3 to 6% for a project. We see anywhere from 7 to 10% as a, just a an overhead and general conditions expense. So that's insurance, equipment, waste, transportation and vehicle costs.
All the office staff.
So that tells you that you could see anywhere from 9 to 15% as a cost on an individual project. What happens when you put two projects together is you're distributing more work under one project, which helps reduce the exposure of how much of that cost has to be spent. I can't give you an exact number, but it's gonna likely save you, I don't know, you think 5-6% on the
Yeah, I
project?
don't think it'd be more than 5, but it might be 5, yeah.
And my thought is that it's saving you about,
I mean, all the
half of
direct,
the
you still have all the direct costs. You're just spreading their overhead over a larger project, which means they've got a smaller overhead cost
Right.
per square foot, if you will.
$12 million between New Boston and Apollo.
right,
You're not talking 5% of that cost.
no, you're probably talking 5% of the,
Of
of
the
two,
15,
yeah.
the 15%.
15%, right. 5% of the 15%.
And it's, this gets into, the construction bid market is like playing a game of poker. So all of this is being said with the idea that, all these contractors take a little bit of a gamble when bidding that, and so they don't just apply the same rates every time they bid it, and so.
The busier you are, the more market they put on.
Yeah.
That's,
The,
that's the facts.
the other thing is, if you have a $9 million job and you make it 11, you're gonna make it more attractive, which is gonna increase the competition on the project. Increased competition drives the markup
That's
cost
way-
down.
That's way better. for
You know,
us than
thinking
that.
about it, that might be a better
Yeah.
advantage. The $9 million project will have a lot of interest regardless. But the $1.6 million project in Alito may have less interest to contractors. So maybe there's a benefit to the Apollo project to be part of the overall construction.
Honestly, from a timelines perspective, it wouldn't be ready
No,
for the
neither
start of
one.
the 2023 school year anyway.
Neither one of them.
So you might as well package them together, and if follow gets done a few months ahead of, it's not.
Yeah.
I agree.
We've done it both ways. Actually, going back to that North Scott School District reference, we did projects on either end of Scott County. We literally put additions all the way across the county together because the combined cost would have made it more desirable than bidding them individually. And the problem being, you might get a person to bid the one project and then the market changes and nobody wants to bid the second one. And so just, again, putting more on the table for a contractor sometimes is desirable. So, and again, increased competition generally reduces the overall cost of the project because just people want it.
All right, any more questions on Apollo?
No.
We can move on to the high school.
So we have a few different options to look at for the high school that are based on the diagram that John sent through with the last meeting minutes. And so option number one places an addition, a two-story classroom addition to the south of the site, using an existing north-south corridor with some modifications, and then vocational to the west with the circulation route through linking back into the gymnasium. And there's an exterior space that's captured here that the suggestion here is that that be a landscaped courtyard that could be used by the cafeteria and by the classroom addition in weather permitting. So the addition to the north is, in this case, has been removed from the building, and vocational has been removed as well.
How big is that vocational compared to what we have currently, you know?
Currently, it's 12,000. And that classroom wing to the north is in the neighborhood of 12,000 as well.
Is that 12, in the classroom part, is that 12,000 both stories combined?
That's probably just.
12,000
Footprint.
12,000
So it's
footprint, yeah,
25,000 square feet total.
Oh, okay.
yes.
So what was the new addition for the attic shop? How many square feet?
11, something like
100.
Shy 12. Lunch addition comes down some also. It was like 3,000 square feet, is that about right?
Say that again.
Is that about 3,000 square feet less than
No.
what we have right now?
I thought they said the old one was 12,000, Jason.
Yeah, they're nominally the same size.
They're pretty comparable. Well, yeah.
The old one was 12.5 for 25 on 2 floors, and this one's 11.4 for 2 floors. Is that correct? I'm having a little trouble reading.
So you're about 2,000 square foot.
Okay, so about 2,000 square feet of it. Yep. And the vocational building's real close to the same. It's a few hundred square feet. And what's the sort of salmon colored stuff going on there?
Circulation, right here.
Yeah.
So that'd be the idea there, is that that's the new entry to the building. And a new entry lobby.
So the salmon stuff is like pedestrians or automobiles coming in there. Where do people drive in and out at? Is that what that salmon stuff's not for automobiles to drive in?
No,
and
that's
park or anything?
building.
That's part of the building that's
If-
walking
if-
through.
And this, the thought here is that you could come in on 15th and have a drive that swoops along the front of the building. You've now created a new main front of building that's facing northeast.
That's the,
That could actually swing through and connect to what is the current drive
Okay.
on the west side of building.
the drive, that's still the drive kind of coming in off of South College.
Yeah.
And intersects with the new front of the building, which is on the northeast.
So the office then would be moved down to this,
Now, the new entry, yeah.
that southeast corner would be the office. And all that would be-
And none of this is perfectly resolved. This is like 10,000 foot view kind of
Yeah,
planning.
Spy satellite.
Yeah, and whether you knock down the full 12.5 or if you keep a little bit of that to rework, just those pieces at that end, that's later to be determined. This is more like just a way of starting to re-envision how this school comes together. The other piece is that the vocational pieces become tied to the main building, which typically when they're integrated with all of your regular academic spaces, it's been found that it creates better awareness to those programs. It lets those students feel more connected with the educational experience, for the rest of the building. So it tends to be more successful throughout. The other thing is when you run a circulation path by it, some really fun things you can do is create more window visibility into those spaces so people can see what's happening in there, which is also really nice. It's not hidden in a dark, shop building somewhere else. It's right there with everything else.
Consolidate the east campus with the rest of the building.
So the
And
next,
does all that tan area end up becoming some parking space then?
Parking or grass?
There,
You're getting rid of quite a bit of parking space, aren't you?
You don't at least. You almost have that, make that all part. Something.
Yeah, where you've got your two new classrooms, that's all parking and drive-throughs, and some of that down, we'll have to have it, I'm sure.
Yep.
Up there somewhere, yep, right there, will be parking. Yep. Be a nice flat spot.
so the next version is similar, but it moves the vocational out west a little bit. Here it's shown lining up with the existing gymnasium. And it gives you a little bit more space between the new and the existing. And there's an opportunity there for an amphitheater. And I'll just show you some existing photographs. That's the cafeteria existing, and you'll notice that the grade is 4 or 5 feet down from the floor level. And then, so with that sloping site, you have an opportunity to slope down towards the cafeteria and then step seating up. And here's some examples of amphitheaters in school settings. It's a way of, shaping a sloping site that makes it useful.
The nice thing about that is it creates an outdoor space that could be outdoor classroom, it could be outdoor gathering, but also with it opening up to the fields to the south, now you can get a tie-in of activities that happen up closer to the school or all the way down at the football field.
The next one, the classroom wing is in the same location. It places vocational in a little more distant spot from the rest of the school. If as you have now, you'd like to keep it more separated from the academic wing, it's still shown connected in this case, but pulled away to the south.
Remember how much money we spent on that concrete repair that we're gonna cover that up with? That's the one, yeah. South gym. Or whatever that is, kind of south.
pennies compared to what we're talking now.
Yes.
Don't be scared, Don.
And the last version, again, places the classroom addition in the same spot to the south of the campus. And then the suggestion here is that vocational go over in the location of the existing classroom wing to the north, and maybe even reuse those existing foundations to save a little on construction costs.
That wasn't one of the big problems at the high school, the cafeteria though.
I don't think you could do a project at the high school without that being a huge priority.
Yeah.
The commons cafeteria space. As far as when we've got mass gatherings or events, lunch, that's our biggest problem.
Right. Well.
And it's a worthy consideration that you can rework the commons cafeteria, and depending on where the administrative offices want to be, if they were to remain in the existing location, you'd still want to do something with that side of the building to make sure you have an accessible path into the gym, no matter what. The crazy thing here is If you were to say, let's start tiptoeing our way into this, and I just want to replace the two-story classroom wing, you're talking about 20-something thousand square feet, you're still talking a sub $10 million number. Right? We didn't run an estimate, but if you look at the new Boston rates and start applying that here, you can start to see that, you could start to strategize a way to start master planning your way into a new school building by starting with the first piece, which is an educational wing replacement. So if you're at about, south of 10 million for the two-story classroom wing, then you still have to add a couple million in if you're going to do that cafeteria commons kind of rework. Because that is going to take a little bit of expense, but you can rework how all of the paving and access and everything works across what would be the new front of building to have a complete accessible path into the building. It really could go a long way to create a whole new vision for how this high school looks and works.
What is the price on that new OTech building up on, I don't care what side,
Yeah,
11,000 square feet times
Yeah.
how much a square foot
the VOTEC itself is
ballpark?
somewhere in the 3 to 4 million range, maybe as a high level of cost.
So that puts 14. And then I'm definitely on board with, we gotta have a new cafeteria area and commons.
We had that.
Right, your salmon area there where you're talking about that step down, outside look. I guess I don't understand why they can somehow blow into a large cafeteria area right there.
You good?
Back, you got it right there.
You good?
And I understand it's not, we're just looking at 10,000 feet down, but I'm just saying that amphitheater could easily be our somehow cafeteria halls.
Cafeteria.
Yeah, centralized. Ballpark, I don't know their sizes or not. It's gotta be appropriate to how many people you have.
The thing is bringing Howard during an event, whether it be in the auditorium or the gym. Where would people come in at? Cause that bottleneck right there where
There's no parking.
right, but like there's that from the current foyer.
Oh, yeah.
That as you go into the gym, it like shrinks down. I mean,
It's
you're
very
barely
tight. Everybody has to walk through one.
single
person at
file at a
pretty
time or
much,
two by two.
Two people get a
Yeah.
little fancy.
So that's
But
the,
even like, if you go to Rock Ridge, they got the great gym, but you walk in the same old.
Yeah.
4 doors they've had forever.
yeah,
And I don't know what that gym holds, but
yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Bill?
absolutely. It'd just be nice to be able to reimagine that somehow.
Well, we're
I mean, the
discussing.
biggest difference in Rock Ridge is those two sets of doors beyond the north side there, coming in gym there.
I guess I was talking to be from the west side. Where I'm talking, when you walk into.
He's talking like
when
the
you-
main
when you
entrance.
Pay to go to a basketball
You
game,
walk in there.
you walk in,
Okay,
and if you,
but then you come into a bigger lobby area
think it's that much bigger
than
than,
ours.
cause
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, way bigger.
yeah. Cause it kind of,
what do you think?
Huh?
I like the way you think. I don't know.
Especially
You
by,
go, you step right up to their,
well, especially by
glass
their entrance to the gym. I know that's basically quite a bit wider than.
that would be,
yeah,
that's where I'm at, is. you-
yeah,
as soon as you
right
pay,
as you in, you're
Soon as
running
you
right
pay,
into the,
Yeah, you go
You,
straight.
you run right
trophy
into their
case.
trophy case.
Yeah.
Cause you used to go straight to the left and go in their old single gym.
So if you create a new way of kind of thinking about the building and changing the flow towards the commons, or the cafeteria, you could come at it completely the opposite way, come from the new kind of main entry around the the music rooms and all that, kind of probably around the new addition side and get your way back in. You could create a whole different access path. It's less direct that way.
Right, cause I mean, now we're talking, now you'll have to add in whatever this cost is on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
'Cause
Cafeteria account.
Just renovating and updating the existing cafeteria, I think we had $1.5 million on it.
But I mean, we all know that's not sufficient, that cafeteria size. That's
Yeah.
gotta be fixed.
Well, they don't cook anything there either,
No.
right?
Uh-uh,
It's
they
all
have
delivered, so
But
it's,
still, it's just not large.
that's right, it's not big enough
mean,
to
even
house the
That's why
kids.
when we looked at some different variations on that earlier, we simply need the square footage, about 3,500 square feet.
Right, so far, what you're telling us is that OTech building, give or take, however we slice it on there, is gonna be 4 million. The classrooms are 10 to 11 million.
Yep.
And then whatever we come up with for this
for the
cafeteria,
Cafeteria.
commons area.
Yeah.
And then slap a new gym on the north side, we're there.
Well, if you're slapping a new gym on, then you got. then
You're
you
just
gotta-
raising the bill, that's all.
but you can put a new entrance in there with a nice big.
Yeah,
commons
you know
area.
where your thing is there, where your
The red
cursor, the red dot?
Oh, yeah.
Blow that out.
Now your
about
whole
20
building's
feet.
running
Yeah,
this
and
way,
then-
yeah.
And then throw the new gym on that north end there.
Well, and so the discussion here was, and this comes back to a question several board members asked, is how do you incrementally work your way towards a whole new high school? And literally dealing with the education wing is one step that you
Yeah.
could start with to
Exactly.
get there. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, cause you do the education wing, then you can come and do the VOTEC and the gym later.
Yeah.
After you've tore down that 2-story portion.
Absolutely.
Comes up. Now, how would you bid that? If you were to, so
So,
let's say you did it in 3 phases.
yeah, you're gonna have to figure out how much you want to bite off in a phase, you know, from a cost standpoint, and that is a project. Then the next question is, how much time lags from one
Yeah.
phase to the next? And likely that's driven by how long does it take to generate funds for it? If it was,
That's gonna increase the cost quite a bit, making it in 3 phases too, though, isn't it?
it will, because you're gonna get whatever the rate of inflation is annually compounding the cost, right?
Well, so here, can you bid it out in one package as 3 phases within that package? So, hey, first you're gonna tear down or build a new 2-story wing, then tear down the 2nd story, then you're gonna move the vocational building and then tear it down. Would a contractor sign up for a 3-year project like that?
God, I
They're
think
probably
you'd
not
have to
gonna
have it.
hold their prices. They're not gonna hold
That's
their
gonna be the
prices good
problem.
till tomorrow.
You know, there's that,
Yeah, that's-
not knowing all the
Yeah.
unknowns.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have to have. You would have to have really, really. Good scope definition and. Clear goals, and likely a contractor, the first thing they're gonna ask you if you bid it that way is they would ask you. How fast can they accelerate that whole schedule? Cause they're not gonna stick around for 3 years on it unless it's all purely committed. The other piece is the logistics of this. You can't tear down the existing classrooms till you build the new.
Right.
Can't tear down the old vocational till you build the new. So there is a phasing to the sequence of construction that would happen no matter what. With a commons, it's again, if it's adding on to the cafeteria, just to get more space, you can add on and then during the summer, punch in and remodel the existing, so. You know, that can happen, the question, Bill, about doing sequential projects, though, you're probably better off if there's gonna be a lag in time.
Yeah.
Just from a funding standpoint, you're better off to do those as individual projects. And yes.
It's a great
you'll probably have
layout
2
here.
different-
We can do this over years.
Yeah.
And school still is continuing. We're not in temporary buildings and things of that
Correct.
nature.
If you have a general sense of the big picture and just a rudimentary overarching estimate, you could still, if a school construction grant came up And you could get funding for the big picture. You could do it all as one big shot.
This looks good. Understanding there's a whole bunch of unanswered questions.
And my guess is the sequenced construction, if you were gonna do everything at once, it's gonna be a multi-year project just because of the moves of
Square a lot.
tearing down and starting. And a lot of times for big high schools, when you're doing multi-sequence projects, in lieu of multi-construction packages, those are where you hire a construction manager and they handle the multiple bid packages of sequencing out, because it's technically complicated to sequence your way through. So there becomes benefit to having a manager kind of help figure out that sequencing. But if it's literally, we're gonna do this piece and wait a few years and do the next, then it's a different approach.
Looks good.
Yeah. This was the mastermind of Nick working on
Nice job.
this.
Thank you. Bill, I gotta get the shit.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I got an early meeting.
No problem.
Yeah. Thanks.
Drive careful.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
All right. Any other questions about the high school or? I think that's good,
It
good information.
it
for
gives
us.
you a food for thought,
Yeah.
because if there's residual funds, you know, on how you sequence this, it's not inconceivable that you can't start actually addressing changes to the high school. And if you know the bigger picture, then you know how they all interrelate.
Yep, okay. Well. Guess next meeting time. Looking July. Would be looking the 11th. Or would it be
The 11th.
the 11th?
You don't wanna meet on the fourth?
I don't either, so that's okay.
So July 11 at 6:30,
Yeah, does that work for everybody?
without looking at a calendar, sure.
I'm looking at mine. It's all summer lifting and football practice stuff for my kids, so.
Shoot, I'm already on, that's on our regular schedule.
Are you busy that day?
No, I've already got it in the thing, cause I'm.
Oh,
I
you
put it
just
in there as
assume it
a- yeah.
as a placeholder. Jason, you good with that? Okay. All right, well, if we got that set, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm gonna go, John.
All right, Nate's second. All second it then. There you go.
I'll be spilling.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. You aye?
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? All right. We adjourn at 8:14, 8:12.
So Jason, did that